Alright, hello there. Welcome to Visual Aid 5001b, ReportRighter Purchasing and Provisioning. So in this Visual Aid, I'm just going to be going through the entire process of once you first purchase and subscribe to ReportRighter all the way to when the user first launches it in Word. Alright, so in this, we're really going to touch on four main topics. And all of these can be found in Work Instruction 5001b, Purchasing and Provisioning. But this is really going to be your step-by-step walkthrough. All of these different agenda items will be flagged so that you can go directly to them. Number 4 will also be included in Work Instruction 5001A, the ReportRighter General Instructions, because this is something that your authorized users, so the people actually using ReportRighter, they will have to follow these instructions, but I figured that it's really the handoff, the transition between you as an administrator and them as an authorized user. So it should really go on both sides so that everybody knows how this process works. So the first part is purchasing ReportRighter subscription. This is going to happen in the Microsoft App Store. So Microsoft AppSource, in there, it'll just like purchasing any other subscription or app in Microsoft. That's how this is going to work. And I'm going to be running through a demo, so it'll look very, very similar to ReportRighter. There might be a few differences, considering this is a demo, not the actual thing. Then after we purchase it, we have to activate the ReportRighter account, and during that process, we will also give our users access, and we can also give admin access to change who our authorized users are. Then after we give access to all of our users, then we'll deploy the add-in in the admin center to these users. This is also very similar to how deploying any other app would work. And then after that, we'll go to launching ReportRighter. This is for our first-time users, right? So 1 and 3 are very standard across any purchase that you do in Microsoft. That's all handled on Microsoft's side. Steps 2 and 4, they're handled by EngSuite. So step 2 is actually handled on the engsuite.org website. And then step 4, that's you launching it for the first time. This will actually look very similar to any other add-in that you put in. Might be a few differences because of our authorization process. If things aren't properly set up, there might be some troubleshooting that you would have to do. All right, so let's get into it. So now we are on the Microsoft AppSource ReportRighter page. And there's all this great information about it, what it does. Since you're here, you already know what it does. You've already looked at this and you're like, yeah, this looks like something I want to do. Yes, I hate that phase between Excel and Word where I'm jumping back and forth, transferring data. I would love to just put ReportRighter in the middle, skip right to going over my report and doing some analysis on the data. Great. What you're going to do after that is you're going to hit this Get It Now button. Okay? Now, these are giving, all of your plans here. There's only one plan. It's just ReportRighter. Someday when the other EngSuite software comes out, such as EngSuite, QEsuite, or PF Designer, you could bundle them. Right now, all we have is ReportRighter. So after you select, it should be already selected, hit Next. And then this is where you can turn recurring billing on or off. If this is something that you are just using for 1 month, go ahead and turn it off. But if you think that there's even a chance that you want to keep going with this, definitely hit on. I would say just go with on. You can cancel at any time. But I don't know, maybe your company's only going to be around for another month, but you want to really use this, then go with on. But I highly recommend going on, okay? So in here, this is where you choose your number of users. You can provision as many as you want. You can also type it in. So let's say I want 27, right? For this case, I only want 1. I'm just going to buy 1, okay? So in here, actually, you know what? Let's go 2. I have 2 accounts in my thing, so I'll go with 2. And then I'll hit Next. And in here, now that it's loaded, it's got your billing account information. I'm going to hit Place Order. So I place my order, starting my order. Okay, great. This takes a little while, so if you want, go ahead and skip ahead. It's not super long, just takes a little bit. I'm not fast forwarding this. I want you to see how quick it is. It's really not bad, but I get, if you're going through this, well, if you're following right along, this is actually probably pretty nice for me to not skip through, because then you don't have to pause. All right, so now here we are. It says, thank you for your order, configure your SaaS account. Okay, this is extremely important. If you do not hit this configure SaaS account button down here, you will not be billed, you will not have access. It's done right there. Microsoft will send you an email going here. If you never follow through with it, there will always be a permanent pending activation. It's really annoying. When I was testing all of this stuff, I got a ton of them. So even if, let's say you get here and you go, you know what, I really love the old way of writing reports. I like taking an hour and a half to copy and paste. To me, that's kind of fun. Maybe you're one of those people. Probably not, but let's say you are, and you want to cancel because you're like, you know what, I really, really like wasting time. Still go through, configure your account, activate it, and then cancel it in the admin center. That's going to be your best option. All right, so in here, this is just going to show me some, some important details here. Then we'll go and we'll hit configure SaaS account. Here it takes you to the EngSuite.org landing page, and then you're going to sign in. So if you're using multiple accounts, please, you have to use the one that you purchased it with. That's going to be very, very important. That's the only one that has admin access right now. So don't switch accounts. Stay in this one. All right. Now it's going to ask for permissions, right? And it's going to sign in and read your profile. Really what it's doing here is it needs this because it needs to say, okay, who are you? Who do you work for? And then once it finds out who you work for, it's going to call and make sure that, yes, this is your subscription. You're authorized to do this on behalf of your organization. Okay, so I'm going to consent on behalf of my organization here. And then what it's going to do is it is going to pull up all of my subscription details. So this is the subscription name. This is my plan. Auto renew billing is set to true. I am Lucius Laframboise. This is my email. And then this is my purchaser tenant ID. So this is something that Microsoft uses to identify your company, your organization. That's very important. Then the purchaser tenant name, that's where you're going to put in your organization's name. Now this is important because when you contact us with help, chances are you don't want to go in and look up your purchaser tenant ID. You're going to want to just say, hey, I'm with this organization. And we can use this purchaser tenant ID associated with the name so that we can then look you up without you having to go into your admin center and figuring out what your tenant ID is. So for this, I'm going to go Lucius Laframboise Enterprises, LLC. That is who I am. And then this is my subscription ID. This is like your purchase order number. So let's say you have an issue. We can look you up by your tenant name. We don't really require this, but this is another way of us identifying who you are. So this actually is identified with the quantity, with the plan, all of that stuff. So like let's say you purchase ReportRighter today, and then in a year you want to buy EngSuite. You would have two separate subscriptions, and so for us to differentiate, we would use this. I mean, we could also use, you want your subscription for ReportRighter. Let's say you want to change the quantity of that. We can still look that up. But I'm just describing what each of these little columns are here so that we can move forward. Now, just so you know, if you were to not put in a tenant name, I forgot to mention this, it would throw an error and it wouldn't let you continue. So, if you like wasting time, and you want to hit it a bunch of times so some red text pops up here, go for it. Highly recommend, just type it in. You want to get to work with ReportRighter, right? And then here's your quantity. This is pulling from the same place all of this is, so this should be accurate. If not, go ahead and hit activate. We can sort it out after that. Let's say I only wanted 2, and then it says here 20. What I would do is activate it, because once it's activated, then us at EngSuite, we can actually interact with your subscription, and we can do stuff. Until then, nobody can do anything. That's the way that it just works in the Microsoft world. I highly recommend activating it and then say, hey, I accidentally typed 20. I really only want 2, and we will drop that 0 right off. And if whatever you were charged that you canceled out of within 24 hours will be fully refunded. So just double check there before you hit activate, because it's right there, easy to find. All right, so now we're going to hit activate, and this might take a little bit because it's doing a couple things. All right, now it's redirected me to this new page after it activated your account. So right now your subscription is activated. You should be billed here shortly. On this page, again, sign in with the same as the account. This account is the only one that has authorized access to this page. So I'm going to sign in. It's signing me in here. And because I already gave consent in the last page, it doesn't have to ask me again. And so it's saying two really important things up in the top. Make sure to save your settings before closing the page, and then here's our deployment URL. Okay, so saving the settings, that is very, very important once we get a little further, as well as deployment URL. Now let's just review here. Let's make sure that we're getting the right stuff here, right? So because this is the demo, it's not fully set up. It can't pull my subscription plan, my auto renew, or purchaser tenant ID. All of these things will show up for you as you're going through. This is all from the last page. Just a reminder, like let's say someday there are multiple plans. It'll show you which one you have so that if you wanted to change it, you can. In here in auto renew, that'll just say true or false based on whether or not it will auto renew. That's very important because let's say your account gets suspended and then, oh my gosh, I thought I had it set to true. I accidentally had it set to false, which means that it won't auto renew. We should go in there and fix that. Then your purchaser tenant ID, let's say you don't want to tell us your organization name. We already have it, but for some reason you think that purchaser tenant ID would be an easier way for us to identify you. You can also include that in any support email. And then here's that purchaser tenant name that we use, just so that you can, this is all just information for you. This is your subscription ID again, and then the quantity. This change quantity button, it will not be there on the final landing page. All of that has to be done through the Microsoft side of things. So in your admin center, you'll have to do that. This is here just for testing purposes in this demo. Okay, so now here's where we get to really the bulk of what we need to do in provisioning, right? So we are giving our users access. And when you give it permission to read your profile, it can actually access all other users in your organization, in your tenant. And that is awesome because I don't want to type out Lucius Laframboise, lucius.laframboise at EngSuite, and then find my user ID. That's pretty easy because I am the user. But how do I find the user ID of, let's say, John Doe? Well, that makes it difficult. So in here, you just start typing their name. And if you notice, it auto-suggests Lucius Laframboise, who is lucius.laframboise at engsuite.org. Now, it's pretty easy for me. There's usually only one Lucius Laframboise in an organization. So generally, I can just look up my name, and they can click it, and it works pretty well, right? Now, let's say you have a bunch of John Does that work at your organization. The reason we have this email here is that that's for your identification, right? So let's say you have John.Doe, John.G.Doe, and John.H.Doe, right? This is how you would differentiate between them. So let's say I want Lucius Laframboise to have access. I click it, and it autofills his username and his user ID. Awesome. And I do that for all of my users. So I also have ReportRighter support. Let's give them access. So I give them access here as well, right? Okay. So another cool thing about what you can do in this portal is you can add your tenants, administrators. So you can remove users. If you remove down to 0, it will not do anything because you have to have at least one tenant administrator, otherwise you're locked out of your account. We don't want that happening. If for some reason that were to happen, you could contact us. We could go back through and give you access. Like, let's say this person leaves the company and they never added on another administrator. We can add administrators on our end. Contact us. We prefer rr.help just because that's your direct line to anything ReportRighter. Put in there, account manage. Just make sure that it's for your account, and then we can do that. But let's say I want to add another tenant administrator. Again, just like before, now rr.help has tenant administration privileges. That means for my organization, they can manage anything on this page. I'm going to remove them. I don't need them. Okay. So another thing to point out in the authorized users is I only bought 2. So there's only 2 slots here. But if you were to buy, let's say 5,000, there would be 5,000 slots. Right now, you have to manually type it in. We're working on a way to upload a CSV file. That's going to take a little bit more time, so just bear with us on that. once that comes, it'll be a little button, you know, maybe right up top that says choose users using CSV. We're working on it, so please give us some time. When that comes out, we will have an update. But chances are, if you're watching this right now, that you won't need to do that, right? You'll already have your users provisioned. So just something coming down the pipeline to let you know about. Okay, now again, we will go back up here and we will hit save. And you notice this handy dandy little message says settings saved. Awesome. That means that all of these users now have access in the database. So now we can actually go to deploying this to these users. And to do that, we're going to go over to the Microsoft Admin Center. Okay, and then in the Microsoft Admin Center, the best way to get to this integrated apps is just type app. And it should be here. Okay, it's not showing up. That's all right. We'll go integrated apps. And it might not, there we go. Settings, integrated apps. I haven't been able to figure out how to get there from settings, but I can get there from the search bar. All right, so now you're going to upload your custom app. And the reason is because this is an easy way to deploy to everybody. They can one at a time go into the Office store and do it that way. This is how you can do it just en masse, right? So in here, we're going to choose to provide a link. And that's where we come over here to our deployment URL. And we're going to highlight this, and we are going to validate. So what that's doing is it's just uploading it into your account, making sure that it's all okay. There's no viruses. There aren't any viruses, but you know, Microsoft is great about security and all of that. And we really appreciate that because they really help us out in that aspect. Okay. We hit next, and now we're on to users. And in here, we are going to assign users. So I can assign it to just me, the entire organization, or specific users and groups. This is a great way to, you know, let's say you have 100 employees at your company, and you only want to give it to, let's say, 10 people. This is how you would do it, right? So in here, I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to add ReportRighter support and Lucius Laframboise, because those are the two that I gave. Oops, I didn't want enterprises. That's the entire group. I want Lucius Laframboise. Okay, so both of these people will now have access. So now I hit next. And again, this is asking for permission. All this is doing is that when the users log in, it's just allowing ReportRighter to say, hey, who are you here with? Oh, I'm here with Lucius Laframboise Enterprises. And then it'll say, okay, let me check just to make sure that you have access. It'll go in and say, yep, you're good to go. Go on, right? So what we're going to do here is we are going to accept permissions. And again, we have to give these permissions. So we're going to accept and next. Okay, so now we're going to finish the deployment, and it is going to ReportRighter support and Lucius Laframboise. So if you were to give this to your entire company, and let's say you only gave 10 people authorized access here, anybody that had it deployed could see it in Word and Excel. Those people are not able to interact with it. It will give, it'll open the task pane and it'll say, I'm sorry, but your organization has a subscription, but you have not been given access. Please contact your administrator about this. So just so you know, you can deploy it to everybody, but only the people you give access to will be able to use it. However, it will cause some clutter on their page if they try to load it, right? So highly recommend that you only deploy to the people that are necessary. Depending on how your account is configured, it could also automatically change your quantity. So that's something I really want to be upfront about with you. That is not something that you would do with us. That is something that happens in Microsoft if you have rolling enrollment. What it'll do is, let's say I provisioned 2 users here, but I gave it to the whole company. If somebody that didn't have access were to log in, depending on how your account is configured, it could automatically charge you for everybody that comes in, automatically add them onto here. And we don't want to charge you for anything that you don't want to be charged for. So highly recommend only deploy to the people that you have given access to. If you take access away, please come in here and take access away. Otherwise, you will have more users than you've provisioned, and it could charge you. Okay. So now that deployment is complete, we're going to hit done. And now we can go into Word.
So before we can get started making our document templates, we have to load ReportRighter into our Microsoft Office applications. And you only have to do this the first time, or depending on sometimes when you switch computers or accounts, you're going to have to reload ReportRighter if it's not in the Home tab. So I already have done this and it already exists up here, but if for whatever reason ReportRighter is not in your Home tab, these are the steps to get it there. You're going to go ahead and click Insert, then the My Add-ins button. Go to Admin Managed, and ReportRighter should be right here. If it's not, go ahead and click Refresh, and then it should show up. So there's two ways to add it. You can either go down here and click Add after you've selected it, or you can just double-click it. And there you go. It'll give you this awesome little ribbon that tells you Get Started with ReportRighter. And all of your buttons should be loaded. This should also load it into Excel. If it does not, for some reason, follow the same exact steps in Excel. So let's get started making our first document template.